The people most certain of their intelligence are usually the ones with the least of it. And there's a specific reason their brain can't see the gap. Once you know the pattern, you'll spot it in seconds. You've met this person, maybe at work, maybe at a dinner table, maybe in a comments session, correcting strangers with the calm confidence of a man who has never once been wrong in his own mind. They speak in absolutes. They dismiss expertise casually. They explain things to you they clearly do not understand. And here's the strange part. The louder they get, the more certain they sound. Not less, more. If you've ever wondered why, psychology has a very specific answer, and it's stranger than most people realize. Because the trait that makes someone overestimate their intelligence isn't arrogance, it isn't ego. It isn't even stupidity exactly. It's something quieter and far more human. It's a blind spot built into the very tool they'd need to see it, and once you understand how it works, you'll never look at overconfidence the same way again. Let's start with the effect at the center of all this, the Dunning-Kruger effect, named after the two researchers who first mapped it in the late 90s. Their finding was disarmingly simple. When people are bad at something, they tend to rate themselves as good at it. And the worse they are, the more confident they often feel. The reason isn't vanity, it's that the mental skills you need to do something well are the same mental skills you need to recognize whether you're doing it well. If those skills are missing, both signals go missing at once. In other words, the person can't see the gap because the very instrument they'd measure the gap with is the thing that's broken. It's like trying to notice you're out of tune when your ears are the thing that's off. From the inside, everything sounds fine. Beautiful, even. That's the first thing to understand about people who think they're smarter than they are. They aren't lying to you. They genuinely can't perceive what they're missing. But that's only the entrance to the pattern. The full psychology goes deeper, and the next layer is where it starts to get genuinely fascinating, because underneath the blind spot, there's a specific way these people talk, think, and react, and once you see the shape of it, you'll recognize it everywhere. The first pattern is what I'd call ceilingless confidence. Truly intelligent people almost always hedge. They say, I think, as far as I know, I could be wrong about this. Not because they're insecure, but because they've been humbled enough times to know the size of what they don't know. People who overestimate their intelligence do the opposite. They speak in flat, closed statements. No hedges, no qualifiers, just verdicts delivered like weather reports. Psychologists connect this to something called metacognition, your ability to think about your own thinking. Strong metacognition sounds like doubt, revision, and second guessing. Weak metacognition sounds like certainty. From the outside, certainty looks like intelligence. From the inside of a well-trained mind, it usually looks like a warning sign. That's why the smartest person in the room is often the one asking the most questions, and the loudest person is often the one who thinks the questions have all been answered. The next pattern hides in how they treat disagreement. Watch closely the next time someone challenges their idea. A person with real intelligence tends to lean in. Their eyes sharpen. They ask what you mean. They're curious because a challenge is new information, and new information is valuable to a mind that actually enjoys thinking. But someone who overestimates their intellect treats disagreement as an attack on their identity. Because for them, being right isn't a byproduct of thinking well. It is the thinking. If they're wrong about one thing, the whole self-image trembles. So they defend, they interrupt, they reframe your point into something dumber, so it's easier to knock down. Psychologists call that a straw man. But the emotional engine underneath is much simpler. Fear. Fear that the story they've told themselves about their own mind might not hold. The tragedy is that this defensiveness is the exact behavior that keeps them locked inside the blind spot. Because to grow, you have to be able to hear the words you're wrong without your nervous system treating them like a threat. And that leads directly into the next sign, which is subtler but even more telling. They confuse fluency with understanding. This one is easy to miss because it looks like intelligence at first glance. They can talk quickly, they can string together sophisticated words. They can summarize an article they skimmed in a tone that makes it sound like they've studied it for years. Cognitive scientists have a name for this, the illusion of explanatory depth. We consistently believe we understand things far better than we actually do, right up until someone asks us to explain the mechanics. Ask them to slow down. Ask, how does that actually work? Step by step. Watch what happens. The fluency evaporates. The confidence often doesn't. Because for this kind of thinker, the goal was never to understand the thing. The goal was to sound like someone who does. And here's the uncomfortable part. This isn't unique to them. Most human brains do a lighter version of this. The difference is that self-aware people notice when they've hit the edge of their real knowledge. Overconfident thinkers keep walking off it. That gap between fluency and understanding is where a lot of bad decisions live. Bad investments, bad diagnoses, bad advice given at family dinners with total assurance. But there's another pattern that runs alongside this one, and it might be the most quietly damaging of them all. They avoid environments where they'd be measured. Truly intelligent people gravitate toward rooms that stretch them. They want to be the least experienced person at the table at least some of the time, because they've noticed that discomfort is where learning actually happens. People who overestimate their intelligence do the opposite. Almost instinctively, they avoid the harder book, the tougher conversation, the group where they'd be the novice. They stay in rooms where they're already the expert, or at least where no one is qualified to correct them. From the outside, this can look like confidence. From the inside, it's a very quiet form of self-protection, because as long as they never enter the room where their limits would show up, their self-image stays intact. Psychologists sometimes describe this as a fixed mindset, drawing on the work of Carol Dweck. In a fixed mindset, intelligence is a fragile thing you either have or don't, so you spend your energy defending the appearance of it. In a growth mindset, intelligence is something you build, so you spend your energy exposing it to challenges. Guess which one produces the loudest self-assessments and which one produces the quietest. And that leads to something even more subtle: the way they consume information. They confuse agreement with insight. Watch what makes them light up. It's rarely a new idea that unsettles them. It's usually an old idea, dressed up in fresh language, that flatters something they already believed. An intelligent mind gets excited by information that contradicts it. Not because it enjoys being wrong, but because being wrong is the only doorway to being less wrong tomorrow. An overconfident mind gets excited by information that confirms it. Confirmation bias is famous enough that most people have heard of it, but it isn't just a quirk of thinking. For someone who's overestimated themselves for years, it's structural. Every piece of confirming information is a small brick in the wall that keeps the blind spot in place. Which is why if you listen carefully to what they share, quote and forward, you'll notice it almost never surprises them. It almost always agrees with them. Their intellectual diet is a hall of mirrors, and they've mistaken the echo for depth. But here's where the pattern gets genuinely tender, because it isn't the whole story. Underneath all of this, there's usually a person who's afraid of not being enough, afraid that if they admitted, "I don't know," the ground would give way. The loudness is armor. The certainty is a comfort blanket. The dismissiveness is a way of standing tall in a world that has, at some point, made them feel small. That doesn't excuse the behavior, but it changes how you see it. Because once you notice that overconfidence is often fear wearing a costume, you stop feeling so annoyed by it. You start feeling something closer to compassion mixed with a very healthy respect for your own boundaries. And here's the twist that most people never quite land on. The very fact that you're watching this, the fact that you're the kind of person who wonders whether they might be one of these people, is itself a strong sign that you're not. I know that's almost annoying to hear, because the deepest hallmark of the overconfident mind is that it doesn't ask this question. It doesn't wonder if it's the pattern. It's too busy diagnosing everyone else. Self-doubt, in moderate doses, is one of the most reliable markers of a mind that's actually working. It means your metacognition is online. It means the instrument is calibrated. It means you can feel the gap between what you know and what you don't. And that feeling is what keeps you honest. The people who feel most sure of their intelligence are usually the ones whose gap has gone quiet. The people who occasionally wonder if they're missing something are usually the ones who aren't. So if you ever sat in a meeting and thought, "I might be wrong about this," congratulations, that was intelligence at work. Not the loud kind, the kind that lasts. Now let's tie all of this together, because the pattern is more coherent than it first looks. People who think they're smarter than they are share a signature: ceilingless confidence, defensiveness under challenge, fluency mistaken for depth, avoidance of rooms that would measure them, a diet of confirmation, and beneath it all a quiet, unspoken fear of being seen as ordinary. What's fascinating is how consistently these traits get misread as strength. We live in a culture that rewards volume, speed, and certainty. So the person shouting an oversimplified take often gets more attention than the person carefully working out a nuanced one. The blind spot doesn't just live inside individuals, it lives inside the incentives around them. Which is why if you can recognize this pattern early, you gain something rare. You stop being intimidated by loud confidence. You stop mistaking hedging for weakness. You start noticing that the quietest voice in the room often has the most carefully built thoughts behind it. Often, that voice is yours. There's a small line worth sitting with. Real intelligence tends to feel from the inside like uncertainty that keeps refining itself. Fake intelligence tends to feel from the inside like being finished. If you've been feeling like you're never quite done thinking about a topic, like every inch you land on opens another question. That's not a flaw. That's the sound of a mind that's still growing. I'd love to know which of these signs you've seen most in the people around you, or, more honestly, which one gave you a small flicker of recognition about yourself. There's no shame in it. We've all done a version of at least one of these. Tell me in the comments. I read every reply, and the most interesting ones often shape the next video. If this way of decoding people speaks to you, there's a video I made about the quiet traits of people who are genuinely intelligent but rarely say so out loud. It pairs with this one almost like a mirror image, and I think you'll enjoy it. And if you'd like to keep going deeper, subscribe and turn on the bell. I decode one hidden pattern of the human mind every week, the kind of pattern most people walk past their whole lives without seeing. Because in the end, the mark of a rare mind isn't how certain it sounds. It's how honestly it can sit with the size of what it doesn't yet know. That's the pattern, that's the whole quiet difference, and once you see it, you can never quite unsee it again.